Number 12. The Antikythera mechanism. Imagine you're a diver in 1901, bobbing around a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. The wreck is ancient, filled with all the usual stuff: amphorae, statues, the ghostly echoes of sailors who probably forgot their lunch. Then you find this clumpy, corroded bronze lump, about the size of a shoebox. You pull it up, and it looks like a pile of soggy, petrified pizza toppings. Fast forward a few decades and a lot of X-rays, and it turns out you've stumbled upon the ancient world's version of a supercomputer. This isn't just a clock. It's a mind-bogglingly complex analog computer from the 1st century BC with over 30 interlocking gears. All hand-carved, by the way, designed to predict astronomical positions and eclipses with terrifying accuracy. The sheer sophistication is what's baffling. It's got a dial for the sun's position, another for the moon, and it even accounted for the moon's slightly wonky elliptical orbit. That's a level of understanding of celestial mechanics that humanity wouldn't rediscover for another 1,000 years. People were busy thinking the sun was a fiery chariot, and some anonymous genius was over here building a machine to predict when the next full moon would be, while simultaneously calculating the dates of the Olympic Games. This thing is the original flex, the ancient equivalent of whipping out your iPhone and using it to do long division just to show off. Basically, the Greeks built a Star Wars droid with a crank handle, and then they just lost the plans. It's like discovering the blueprint for a Tesla in a Viking longhouse. It's so far outside of its technological timeline that it makes you wonder what else they were hiding from us. Maybe they had ancient steam-powered Roombas too. We'll never know. Number 11. The Baghdad Battery. So, picture this. You're an archaeologist in 1930s Iraq, digging through a dusty village outside of Baghdad. You come across this humble-looking clay pot, about the size of a coffee mug. Inside, there's a copper cylinder sealed with asphalt, and inside that there's an iron rod. At first glance, you'd probably think it was a repurposed spice jar or some kind of weird ancient Rube Goldberg device to store a particularly stubborn olive. But then you look closer and you realize this isn't just a pot. It's a fully functional, albeit low-voltage electric battery. Yes, a battery. From around 250 BC. For this thing to work, all you'd need to do is fill it with some kind of acidic liquid, vinegar or grape juice maybe, and bam, you've got a voltaic pile generating around 1.1 volts of electricity. The big question, of course, is why? Why did people living in the time of togas and sandals need a battery? The leading theory, which is a total brain bender, is that they were using it for electroplating. Imagine an ancient artisan using this little pot to cover a silver trinket with a thin layer of gold. It's like finding out the Romans had a secret stash of electric toothbrushes. Another theory is that it was used for some kind of proto-medical electrotherapy, or even just for a magic show, where a priest would touch a statue that would mysteriously shock you. We don't know for sure, but the fact remains that someone figured out how to harness electricity 2 millennia before Benjamin Franklin was out there flying a kite in a thunderstorm. So while we're all walking around with smartphones in our pockets, remember that some ancient Babylonian dude might have been using his little clay pot to charge up his golden bling. Number 10. The Roman dodecahedron. Have you ever found a strange object and spent an hour trying to figure out what it is? Maybe it's a weird-shaped kitchen gadget or a bizarre souvenir from your aunt's trip to Idaho. Now imagine that happening to a whole bunch of archaeologists, but for about 200 years. That's the Roman dodecahedron. Discovered all across Europe, from Wales to Hungary, these things are small, hollow, 12-sided bronze objects with a knob on each corner. Each face has a perfectly round hole in it, and no two holes are the same size. They're like a fidget spinner designed by a particularly detail-oriented Roman mathematician. The wildest part? Nobody has a clue what they were for. We have hundreds of these things, and not a single text from the time mentions them. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Theories abound, and they get progressively weirder. Are they candelabras? A measuring device for calibrating water pipes? Maybe a tool for determining the best time to sow winter grain? Did they use them as fancy dice for a board game so complex it makes Dungeons & Dragons look like tic-tac-toe? The mystery is so profound that some people just shrug and say they were decorative. But who decorates their house with a bizarre 12-sided geometric puzzle box with differently sized holes? It's the ultimate ancient enigma, a puzzle without a solution, a device that exists purely to make modern historians stare at each other with a look of profound confusion. It's basically the Roman equivalent of a USB-C cable that only fits a specific port that no longer exists. Number 9. The Lycurgus cup. Imagine you're at a party in ancient Rome, holding a glass cup. It looks like a standard, fancy green goblet. But as the host holds it up to the candlelight, it undergoes a mind-boggling transformation. It's no longer green, it's a brilliant, glowing ruby red. You'd probably think you were either hallucinating or that your host was a magician with a side hustle. Well, the Romans had no magic, just some seriously advanced and completely accidental nanotechnology. This is the Lycurgus cup, a Roman cage cup from the 4th century AD, and it is a masterpiece of materials science. The glass is what's called dichroic, meaning it changes color depending on how light hits it. But it's not because of a weird dye or some secret spell. It's because the artisans who made it somehow managed to suspend tiny nanometer-sized particles of gold and silver inside the glass itself. We're talking particles so small that 1,000 of them could fit across the width of a single human hair. When light hits the cup from the front, the particles reflect it and you see a green color. But when you shine a light through it, those same particles scatter the light in a different way, and it glows a deep, iridescent red. This is exactly how modern scientists create smart glass or use gold nanoparticles in medical research today. The Romans, without any microscopes or knowledge of atoms, had stumbled upon a fundamental principle of nanotechnology that we wouldn't fully understand for another 1,600 years. Basically, some ancient Roman glassblower was just trying to make a pretty cup and accidentally created a super advanced material that's still baffling scientists today. It's like a caveman accidentally inventing the smartphone and just using it to smash nuts. Number 8. Damascus steel. You're a knight in the Middle Ages, and you see your opponent draw a sword. But this isn't any ordinary sword. It's a Damascus steel blade with a wavy, watery pattern running down its length. This legendary metal was a game-changer on the battlefield. Not only was it incredibly sharp, but it was also flexible and unbelievably strong. Legends say these swords could cut through other swords and even slice a silk scarf as it fell through the air. Making this kind of steel was a lost art for centuries, and for the longest time, we had no idea how they did it. People tried to replicate it for hundreds of years and failed every time. Then, in the early 2000s, some very smart scientists used electron microscopes to finally look at the internal structure of these ancient blades, and what they found was completely insane. The steel contained cementite nanowires and, get this, carbon nanotubes. Yes, the same carbon nanotubes that we use in cutting-edge materials science today. The original steel, called Wootz steel, was sourced from India and had a unique chemical composition that, when forged using a secret and now lost process, created these nanostructures. The people who made these blades didn't know they were working on a nanoscale level. They were just following a recipe passed down for generations. It's like a medieval blacksmith was unknowingly building a super advanced material that was centuries ahead of its time, all while thinking he was just a dude hitting a piece of metal with a hammer. We have all the technology in the world, and yet we still can't perfectly replicate a sword made by people who probably thought the sun revolved around the earth. Number 7. Roman concrete. You buy a new phone, and 2 years later, it's practically obsolete. Your brand new car starts making weird noises the second the warranty expires. Now, think about the Pantheon in Rome, with its massive unreinforced concrete dome, or the vast network of aqueducts still standing tall after 2,000 years. These aren't just old buildings. They're a testament to a lost, far superior technology. The Romans built structures that were so strong, so durable, that they're still outlasting our best modern efforts. Our concrete starts to crack and crumble the second it gets wet, but Roman concrete just doesn't. The secret ingredient wasn't some kind of magic spell. It was a clever use of volcanic ash, or pozzolana. When the Romans mixed this ash with lime and seawater, they created a chemical reaction that formed a mineral called aluminum tobermarite. Here's the crazy part. This mineral actually makes the concrete stronger over time, especially when exposed to water. It's a self-healing material. Modern concrete starts to corrode when salt water gets in, but Roman concrete used salt water to get stronger. They were basically building with immortal lava goo. It's like they found out how to make a building that gets better with age, like a fine wine, while we're still stuck building with a glorified mixture of gravel and dry biscuit crumbs. Our best engineers are still trying to figure out how to replicate it. Because we're tired of watching our bridges crumble, while some 2,000-year-old Roman seawall is just chilling, getting stronger with every tide. Number 6. Olmec magnets. Think about the last time you used a compass. Maybe it was on your phone, maybe it was a fancy one from a camping store. Now imagine a world where you don't even know what a magnet is, and yet you've somehow figured out how to use one to navigate. This is what the Olmec civilization of Mesoamerica was doing way back in 1000 BC. Archaeologists found these curiously grooved bars of hematite, a type of iron oxide rock. At first glance, they look like nothing special, just a rock someone decided to carve. But when scientists floated them in water, they discovered a mind-blowing fact. They consistently pointed to magnetic north. The Olmecs had created the world's first known compasses. This isn't just a happy accident. Someone had to figure out that if you magnetize this specific type of rock and let it float freely, it will align itself with the Earth's magnetic field. This implies a level of understanding of geomagnetism that is absolutely staggering for a civilization that lived 2,000 years before the Chinese are credited with inventing their own compass. We're not sure what they were using these for. Maybe for religious rituals, maybe for surveying and aligning their cities to celestial bodies. It's a completely lost piece of knowledge. They were navigating with rocks that pointed north while we're out here getting lost with a talking map app. They had a natural, intuitive understanding of the planet's magnetic field, and we still have to ask Siri for directions. Number 5. The Roman velarium. You're at a football game, squinting into the sun, trying to avoid a sunburn that'll last all week. Now, imagine you're a Roman spectator in the Colosseum, watching two gladiators try to turn each other into minced meat. It's hot, the sun is beating down, and the whole thing is becoming a bit of a sweaty mess. But then, as if by magic, a massive, retractable awning unfurls above the entire arena, providing shade for all 50,000 of you. This wasn't some kind of wizardry. This was the velarium, a mind-bogglingly complex engineering feat from a time when the most advanced machines were a couple of livers and some angry donkeys. The velarium was a gigantic canvas covering, and the sheer scale and ingenuity of it are insane. It was operated by a specialized crew of sailors from the Roman Navy, who were experts in ropes and rigging. Using a network of pulleys, wooden masts, and ropes, they could deploy and retract this massive awning to protect the crowd from the sun or rain. Think about the logistics. The weight of the fabric, the force of the wind, the precision required to cover an arena that could hold tens of thousands of people. It's an architectural marvel that's often overlooked. While we struggle to build stadium roofs that don't leak, the Romans were using advanced sailing technology to create a temporary automated sunroof for their public executions. It's the ancient equivalent of having a giant remote-controlled garage door, but instead of for your car, it's for an entire stadium. Number 4, the Archimedes screw. Some inventions are so good, so fundamentally simple and effective, that they just never go out of style. The wheel is one, the lever is another, and then there's the Archimedes screw. Attributed to the Greek mathematician and engineer Archimedes in the 3rd century BC, this device is so basic it almost feels stupid. It's just a helical, screw-shaped surface inside a cylinder, and when you turn it, it lifts water from a lower elevation to a higher one. It's literally a corkscrew for liquid. But don't let its simplicity fool you. This thing was a game changer. The Archimedes screw revolutionized everything from agriculture to mining. Farmers used it to irrigate their crops, pumping water from rivers and lakes into their fields. Miners used it to drain water from shafts. And ships used it to pump bilge water out of their hulls. The most incredible part? It's still in use today. Walk into a modern wastewater treatment plant or see a grain silo, and you'll find modern versions of the Archimedes screw. They're still the most efficient way to move certain materials. The fact that a 2,300-year-old invention is still a go-to solution for a fundamental engineering problem is a testament to its genius. It's basically the ancient version of the Swiss Army knife, a simple, brilliant design that just works, and will probably still be working 1,000 years from now. Number 3. The Iron Pillar of Delhi. What if I told you there's a 1,600-year-old metal pillar standing in a courtyard in India that has barely rusted? I know, it sounds like something out of a fantasy novel where dwarves forged some kind of magical artifact, but this thing is real. The Iron Pillar of Delhi is a massive 23-foot-tall iron column from the 5th century, and it's been exposed to the monsoon rains and brutal heat of India for over a millennium and a half. And yet, it's in almost perfect condition. We're talking about a time when most metal rusted away in a matter of years, but this pillar looks like it was forged last Tuesday. For the longest time, this was a complete mystery. We have a basic understanding of how iron rusts. It's just a chemical reaction. So how did an ancient civilization create a rust-proof pillar without any of our modern knowledge of metallurgy? Scientists eventually figured out that the secret was in the specific combination of high-purity iron and a special forging technique. The result was a thin, protective layer of crystalline iron hydrogen phosphate on the surface. This layer, which formed naturally over time, essentially seals the iron and prevents rust from forming. The artisans who made this thing weren't just blacksmiths. They were ancient materials scientists who, through trial and error, discovered how to create a metal that was more durable than almost anything we could forge today. Basically, they had a secret recipe for an immortal metal, and we lost it. They were building with a rust-proof alloy while we're out here dealing with cars that turn into a pile of orange dust after 5 winters. Number 2, the Roman aqueducts. You turn on a tap, and water comes out. It's a modern miracle you never think about. But this basic convenience, this fundamental building block of civilization, was perfected thousands of years ago by the Romans. Their aqueducts weren't just a series of stone bridges. They were a massive, interconnected network of channels, tunnels, and pipes spanning hundreds of miles, all designed with a mind-boggling level of precision to bring fresh water into their cities. The whole system worked on gravity alone. There were no pumps, no motors, just a perfectly engineered continuous downhill flow. And when I say perfectly engineered, I mean it. The slope of the aqueducts was incredibly subtle, sometimes a drop of just a few inches for every 100 feet. This level of surveying and mathematical accuracy is astonishing for a civilization without modern tools. They also used clever engineering tricks, like inverted siphons to cross valleys, where the water would be forced down and then up a hill using pressure, and then it would continue on its gravity-fed path. This wasn't just civil engineering. It was a grand logistical masterpiece. They were building a complex, functional plumbing system for an entire civilization that was built to last forever. We have all the satellites and supercomputers in the world, and we're still just trying to get our water to flow downhill as efficiently as the Romans did. We're basically living on the technological leftovers of an empire that ended a long time ago. Number 1. The Phaistos disk. What if I told you that the first person to ever use a printing press lived in the Bronze Age? You'd probably call me a crazy person and tell me to go back to my conspiracy theories. But in 1908, a mysterious clay disk was discovered in an ancient Minoan palace on the island of Crete. It's about 6 inches in diameter and covered on both sides with a spiral of strange hieroglyphic-like symbols. But here's the kicker. These 241 symbols weren't painstakingly carved by hand. They were stamped into the wet clay using a set of individual, pre-made dies or seals. This is a form of movable type. It's the same basic principle that Johannes Gutenberg used to invent his printing press around 1450 AD. The fact that this technology existed in 1700 BC, nearly 3,000 years earlier, is absolutely bonkers. It's like finding a microwave in a caveman's handprint. The symbols themselves are a complete mystery. We've never found anything else like them, so we have no idea what they mean. Was it a prayer? A contract? A weird kind of ancient board game? Nobody knows. The Phaistos disk is a one-off artifact, a piece of technology that seems to have been used once and then completely forgotten, leaving behind the world's most frustrating and beautiful mystery. The ancient world had a printing press, and all we got was this stupid, unreadable clay disk. It's the ultimate example of a technology that was way ahead of its time, but whose purpose and existence remains a total enigma.